Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we will be reviewing Emerald City, episode 5, entitled Everybody Lies. And so as we recall from last week's episode, Dorothy was knocked out with a boomerang. And we come to find that she was knocked out by Ojo. And as we get into the episode, we understand the reason why Ojo did that. As we recall, Ojo was the same munchkin or person from the village when she first arrived in Oz, who was tasked with escorting her out of the village because they believed she had killed the Witch of the East, and they didn't want any of the consequences on their village from Dorothy's action. But we come to understand that the reason Ojo has knocked her out and basically kidnapped her is because he's cut a deal with the Witch of the West. The Witch of the West wants to interrogate Dorothy and get as much information out of her as she can. And in exchange for Ojo retrieving Dorothy, she promises to release Ojo's wife using magic. So she's made Glinda aware of this, Glinda being the Witch of the North, and Glinda wants to get there before she does anything, the Witch of the West. Glinda, as she's demonstrated in the show, she, seems to have very little confidence in the Witch of the West. She kind of feels like, everything she touches turns into a disaster. So Glinda's seemingly trying to get there to do some damage control, but it also seems that there are some more secrets that are, going on with Glinda in the Witch of the East. As we come to find out that during the interrogation of the Witch of the West, that, that the Witch of the East was in fear that Glinda was trying to harm her. And so, the Witch of the West is basically able to retrieve Dorothy's thoughts and see all of the information that the Witch of the East was asking her through magic. And so now the Witch of the West knows she has to be cautious of the Witch of the North, and she's very suspicious of what was going on, why the Witch of the East felt threatened by her. And so she's going on with the interrogation and plans to keep everything basically a secret from Glinda. So we also know that we left Lucas, or the Scarecrow, last week in a situation where he and the captain of the guard, he was aware that the captain of the guard knew his identity, and he was curious as to know how he knew the identity. And the captain did still, although he was shot by Dorothy, the captain of the guard still sought out to find the Scarecrow. And, as last week's episode left off, we did see that the captain of the guard did reach the Scarecrow and basically was able to give him the questions that he was looking for. And he basically escorts the Scarecrow back to his home and is explaining to him who he really is. So this seems to be an interrogation scene with Dorothy under the Witch of the West. So in this scene, we get basically the wizard, and he's talking to the captain of the guard because he's trying to understand why the captain of the guard was unable to bring Dorothy to him. And the captain of the guard is explaining to the wizard in the best way he knows how that he was actually shot by Dorothy. Of course, he doesn't know what a gun is. He just knows it's a very powerful weapon. But the wizard is very aware of what a gun is, so he's able to basically, explain to him, or at least have the knowledge of what a gun is. And so this is a picture of Jack, and we recall Jack was left with the princess, and we come to find that the princess doesn't really have any friends. So she's basically trying to turn Jack into her personal friend, but she's treating him like a pet. And Jack's basically let her know that, hey, I'm a human being. This isn't how you treat other human beings. If you really want a friend, you treat friends with respect. And this is something that the princess, being in her position, everyone has been subject to her, so she doesn't understand this, and so she's starting to learn from Jack how to be a true friend. And this is just another scene with the princess, her father, the king, and the wizard. They are basically, both parties have met because the wizard needs their help in order to defeat the beast forever, or this beast is prophesied to come. And, we find out some very interesting things in this scene. We first find out that the king is not mentally fit to run the kingdom, and it's pretty much the princess who's handling everything. But we also get to discover that during the last time that the beast came, that their kingdom was pretty much destroyed, that they got no help from the wizard. And so they're blaming the wizard for not helping them with his giants, not saving them as well. Of course, they're unaware that the wizard was never actually controlling the giants, that he lacked the power to do that. But they're unaware of this, so they in a sense are refusing to help the wizard because they want to see Oz burn and suffer just like their kingdom did. And so this is just a scene with Glinda and the Witch of the West. And the Witch of the West is basically, explaining to Glinda. By the time Glinda does arrive there, Dorothy has escaped because, as we recall, Tip is now under the tutelage of the Witch of the West, but as we recall in earlier episodes, the witch, or rather Dorothy, helped Tip escape when she was still a boy. So Tip felt indebted to Dorothy, and although at first she wouldn't help Dorothy, she came around and she finally decided to help Dorothy escape. And this is just another scene with the princess, and she was explaining to the wizard the pain and suffering that they were caused by not receiving any aid or help from Emerald City. And this is where Lucas, or the Scarecrow, did meet with the captain of the guard, and he, basically, the captain of the guard basically explains who he was, and that he's one of the best soldiers he's ever known, and that, he was under his command, but you can tell there was a strong camaraderie there. There was a great, somewhat friendship there. And the captain of the guard really wants to protect the Scarecrow, but the Scarecrow wants to get out. He wants to go out, venture out, to try to find Dorothy. And this is just another scene with the princess and Jack. And Jack is basically there. At the meeting with the wizard, there was also this festival going on that they were all attending. And so, as Jack and the princess were getting to be friends and they were on their way from the festival, they were actually attacked by a group of bandits. And Jack was able to save the princess, due to his new alterations with being his mechanical limbs and metallic limbs, and, which were, came in handy when it came to defending the bandits from the princess. And this is just another scene where Dorothy's being interrogated by the Witch of the West. And of course, the Witch of the West is using all her magical powers and abilities to get the answers out of Dorothy that she wants. A very interesting scene. She does retrieve Dorothy's gun, and unlike the Witch of the East, she knows exactly how to hold the gun and point it at Dorothy with the barrel facing Dorothy. So Dorothy's unable to trick the Witch of the West like she did the Witch of the East. As well, the Witch of the West is able to do some mind reading abilities on Dorothy and extract many of the answers she was seeking. And, this is basically just a scene where the Scarecrow basically finds out that not only who he is, but that he is quite the monster, and that he killed, several people, and that he is wanted by Emerald City still. Despite the fact the captain of the guard is trying to protect him, he knows him to be a good man. He is a wanted man, and the guards are basically tell him a story about who he really was and how he killed all these men. And the Scarecrow decides that if that's the man he was, that he wants to change from this point on. So he decides to turn himself over in custody of these men. And so this is a scene after Dorothy escapes with the help of Tip. She does escape, and Dorothy decides that she's going straight to Emerald City to finally get all the answers she needs, and she's just a few feet away. She's almost there. And just another scene where the Witch of the West is actually about to kill one of her former assistants, because Tip finds a very smart way to set up her former assistant, in that the Witch of the West kind of chose Tip over her as her new assistant. So Tip is able to create a story and a situation where she's able to make it look like her former assistant is who got Dorothy out of there, so that the blame doesn't come back on her. And she's able to make the story work because this assistant has already showed signs of jealousy earlier. So it's easy for the Witch of the West to believe the story that Tip has spun, even though the assistant did catch Tip assisting Dorothy to escape. But Tip cleverly makes the Witch of the West believe her, and the Witch of the West ends up killing her assistant. And so this is just a scene where the Scarecrow, earlier on in the series, was trying to save the young girl who we remember from last week, who could turn people into stone. Shortly after Dorothy was knocked out and he and her tried to escape, this was a battle that ensued between him and some of the Emerald City guards who were trying to apprehend him. Just another scene with Tip, and this seems to be when she was helping Dorothy to escape. A scene with the Tin Man, or Jack, actually fighting off the bandits to help the princess. And this was a scene where Ojo came to collect on his promise from the Witch of the West. But the Witch of the West, proving to be a deceitful witch, actually didn't honor the request. And she basically told him that everybody lies. and that she would be unable to help him. So it's fitting with the title of the this week's episode. And Ojo found that even though he did everything he thought would get his wife back, that wasn't the case. Just a scene with the wizard talking with the king, and this is where he discovers that the king is not really running the kingdom because the king is not mentally fit. Again, Ojo in the Witch of the West, as he delivers Dorothy. Tip coming in to confront the Witch of the West about how Dorothy escaped and putting the blame on her formal assistant. This looks like the princess at the festival. And so what's interesting about this week's episode is you see Dorothy wearing this mask right here. She actually does make it into Emerald City. And it's kind of interesting because she just walks right through the front door and walks into the wizard's private quarters. And I'm a little bit confused about that because Dorothy and the wizard, they do get to meet in this episode. But the way she walks in, what's very surprising is that how easy it was for her to get in. So I'm assuming that the wizard knew she was coming. I'm assuming that he was expecting she'd walk in that way. But what the great reveal was in this episode was that the wizard knew who Dorothy was. And he was like, "You're back. Welcome back home, Dorothy." Like he knew that she was once a resident of Oz, but she was taken away. And I don't know how he knew who she was because, as I understand it, she left there when she was a baby. But the wizard did know her mom, so he was able to, I guess, put it together that Dorothy was the baby that left there. But we still don't know exactly who Dorothy is supposed to be. And so some of my predictions are that Dorothy may be as I said in some previous episodes, Dorothy may actually be the daughter of the wizard, or she may be the true ruler of Oz. And that will be quite the turn, but I think episode 6 that's coming up is going to be quite interesting because we're going to get to figure out what story the wizard's going to tell Dorothy. Is it going to be a made-up story? Is it going to be the truth? What's going on? But it ended quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in that case. We still didn't get the Cowardly Lion or whoever's going to play that part. And, as my assumptions been or my predictions been, it's probably going to turn out to be the captain of the guard. He still hasn't really shown anything that shows that he's a coward in any form. But maybe in the next episode we'll get more backstory. The only thing we got in this episode was that he was trying to protect the Scarecrow. And I guess it was some fear in that. And maybe that's a glimpse into the idea that we're going to probably find a captain of the guard who has many fears. At least that's my prediction. But a pretty good episode. I think next week's episode is going to be pretty big because I think it's going to pretty much wrap up a lot of the questions we've had so far. And but I'm not trusting of the wizard. The wizard's proven already to be a very shifty type character. So I'm doubting he's going to tell the truth about really what's going on. But anyway, guys, if you're watching the show and if you like it, be sure to comment and let me know what you think about the show. If you like this version of The Wizard of Oz, if you think it's the best or you just think it's okay or if you think it sucks, whatever the case is, don't forget to like and subscribe. And take care, guys.